Have you ever wondered why, despite your best efforts to cut back on fluids in the evening, you still find yourself staring at the bathroom mirror at 3 in the morning? It is a frustrating, exhausting cycle that millions of people over the age of 40 face every single night. You go to bed hoping for 8 hours of uninterrupted rest, but like clockwork, your bladder wakes you up. Most people dismiss this as a simple sign of aging. They think my bladder is just getting smaller. But today, I'm going to tell you the truth. Your bladder isn't shrinking. In fact, the bladder is one of the most elastic and resilient organs in the human body. The reason you are waking up has very little to do with the size of your bladder and everything to do with a complex biological process called Nocturia. To solve this mystery, we first have to understand the role of your kidneys and your hormones. Deep inside your brain, there is a small gland that produces something called antidiuretic hormone, or ADH. Think of ADH as a stop signal for your kidneys. When you sleep, your brain is supposed to release a surge of this hormone to tell your kidneys to slow down, concentrate your urine, and let you rest. However, as we age or due to certain dietary habits, our brain's production of ADH begins to falter. Without this signal, your kidneys continue to work at full daytime capacity throughout the night. They are essentially wide awake while you are trying to sleep. This is the first reason why your bladder fills up so quickly after midnight. But there is a second, even more powerful force at play, and it is something most people never consider: gravity. I call this the gravity trap. Think about your typical day. Whether you are working at a desk, standing in a kitchen, or walking through a store, you are upright for 12 to 16 hours. During these hours, gravity is constantly pulling the fluids in your body downward toward your feet and ankles. Have you ever noticed that by 5 or 6 p.m., your socks leave a deep indentation on your skin, or perhaps your shoes feel tighter than they did in the morning? This is not just fatigue. This is fluid accumulation, known medically as peripheral edema. Your heart is a magnificent pump, but it has to fight a constant battle against gravity to pull blood and lymphatic fluid back up from your lower extremities. Over the course of the day, your legs become like a reservoir, holding on to liters of excess fluid that your heart simply couldn't pump back up. Now here is the critical moment. The second you lie down in bed, the battlefield changes. By going horizontal, you have suddenly eliminated the force of gravity. All that fluid that was trapped in your ankles and calves for 10 hours now has a clear, flat path back to your heart. Within 60 to 90 minutes of lying down, your blood volume suddenly spikes as all that leg water rushes back into your central circulation. Your heart detects this sudden increase in volume and panics slightly. It thinks you are overhydrated. In response, your heart sends a powerful chemical signal to your kidneys that says, "We have too much fluid. Get rid of it now." Your kidneys, being the loyal workers they are, go into overdrive. They start filtering that fluid at a massive rate, turning it into urine. This is why you can stop drinking water at 5 p.m. and still wake up at 1 a.m. with a bursting bladder. It wasn't the water you drank. It was the water you were wearing in your legs all day. Furthermore, we have to look at the hidden irritants in our modern world. Most people don't realize that the lining of the bladder is incredibly sensitive. If your body is in a state of chronic inflammation, perhaps from a diet high in processed sugars or seed oils, your bladder becomes twitchy. It starts sending signals of fullness to your brain when it is only 20% full. This is a sensory error. Your brain receives a frantic message: emergency, empty the bladder. But when you get to the bathroom, only a small amount comes out. This is the hallmark of an irritated bladder. If you want to stop this cycle, you have to stop treating the symptoms and start managing the fluid. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you a simple afternoon elevation technique that can drain your legs before you ever hit the pillow. We are also going to discuss the 6 p.m. stabilizer, a specific habit that calms the bladder nerves and prepares your body for a dry, peaceful night. This is not about taking expensive pills or undergoing surgery. It is about working with your body's natural rhythms instead of against them. Let's dive into the first practical step you can take today to reclaim your sleep. Now that we have mastered the gravity trap and learned how to drain the excess fluid from our legs before bed, We must address the most misunderstood part of the night, the internal chemistry of your bladder. Most people think that the secret to sleeping through the night is simply a matter of willpower or stopping all liquids at a certain hour. But the human body is far more complex than a simple water tank. If you want to stop the midnight trips to the bathroom, you have to understand the 6 p.m. protocol. The hours between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. are the golden window for bladder health. During this time, your body's circadian rhythm, your internal biological clock, is preparing to shift from active mode into restorative mode. One of the biggest mistakes people make is becoming severely dehydrated after 6 p.m. You might think that by not drinking anything, you are keeping your bladder empty. However, the opposite often happens. When you stop drinking entirely, your urine becomes highly concentrated and acidic. This acidic urine acts as a chemical irritant to the delicate lining of your bladder, known as the detrusor muscle. This irritation causes the bladder to send false alarms to your brain. Your brain perceives this irritation as fullness, and suddenly you are awake at 2 a.m., rushing to the bathroom only to produce a tiny amount of urine. This is why the secret 6 p.m. drink is so vital. The drink we recommend is not a diuretic like coffee or tea, but a bladder stabilizer. Many urologists and herbalists point toward, or these are unique because they are anti-inflammatory and soothing. By drinking one small warm cup at exactly 6 p.m., you are sending a signal to your urinary system to calm down. These herbs help flush out the remaining irritants from your kidneys while you are still awake, allowing you to empty your bladder one last time before bed. This isn't just about hydration, it's about chemical neutralizing. But let's look deeper into the chemistry of fluid. We cannot talk about the bladder without talking about sodium and potassium. Your body operates on a delicate salt pump. Sodium, salt, causes your body to hold onto water like a sponge. If your evening meal is high in salt, think of processed meats, salty snacks, or even heavy restaurant food, your body will cling to every drop of fluid. Late at night, as your blood pressure naturally dips, that salt sponge squeezes out, and all that water is dumped directly into your kidneys. To counter this, you must introduce potassium at 6 p.m. Potassium is the natural enemy of sodium. By having a small snack rich in potassium, such as half a banana, a few slices of avocado, or some cucumber, you are giving your body the tool it needs to release that stored salt water early. This allows you to pee out the salt water while you are still watching TV or reading, rather than when you are trying to sleep. Now we must address the hidden midnight flood caused by insulin. This is a factor that very few people talk about. When you eat a dinner high in simple carbohydrates, white rice, pasta, sugary desserts, or white bread, your blood sugar spikes, followed by a massive surge of insulin. Insulin is a powerful hormone that tells your kidneys to retain sodium. As long as your insulin is high, your body stays bloated. However, as you sleep, your insulin levels eventually begin to drop. The moment insulin levels fall, your kidneys receive a sudden release signal. They dump all the sodium and water they were holding onto earlier in the evening. This creates a sudden, massive surge of urine at 3 a.m. If you have ever wondered why you wake up with a completely full bladder even though you didn't drink much, your dinner's insulin spike is often the culprit. The 6 p.m. secret is to eat a dinner focused on proteins, healthy fats, and fiber, which keep insulin stable and prevent that midnight fluid dump. Furthermore, we have to talk about bladder irritants that we consume unknowingly. Artificial sweeteners, especially those found in diet sodas or sugar-free evening snacks, are notorious for irritating the bladder. Chemicals like saccharin and aspartame can cause the bladder muscles to spasm. Even if your bladder is only 10% full, these chemicals trick the nerves into thinking it is an emergency. The same goes for spicy foods and citrus fruits in the evening. If you are struggling with nocturia, your 6 p.m. meal should be pH neutral. This means avoiding very spicy, very acidic, or chemically sweetened foods that turn your bladder into a ticking time bomb. Lastly, there is the psychological component of the 6 p.m. protocol. Your bladder and your brain are in a constant conversation. If you are stressed or anxious in the evening, your body remains in a sympathetic state, the fight or flight mode. In this state, your body produces more cortisol, which can disrupt the antidiuretic hormones that are supposed to keep you asleep. The 6 p.m. drink should be a ritual, a time to de-stress. By calming the nervous system, you are indirectly calming the bladder nerves. In the next part of our series, we are going to step into the bedroom. We will discuss the temperature secret, how the cold air in your room might be forcing your kidneys to work harder than they should. We will also talk about mouth breathing versus nose breathing and how your breath actually dictates how much you pee at night. This is the final piece of the puzzle that will allow you to finally achieve 8 hours of uninterrupted deep sleep. We have addressed the fluid in your legs and the chemistry of your evening drinks. But now we must enter the final frontier of the night, your bedroom. You might be surprised to learn that the physical environment in which you sleep, the air you breathe, and the temperature of your skin can actually force your kidneys to work harder than necessary. If you have ever followed all the rules but still woke up to pee, the secret lies in what happens after you close your eyes. This is the environmental trigger that ruins sleep for millions. Let's start with the most overlooked factor, ambient temperature and cold diuresis. Have you ever noticed that when you are in a cold environment, you feel the urge to urinate more frequently? This is a biological phenomenon called cold diuresis. When your body feels cold, it tries to protect your internal organs by constricting the blood vessels in your skin and extremities. This process, known as vasoconstriction, shunts more blood toward your core to keep your vital organs warm. However, this sudden increase in blood volume in your internal core tricks your kidneys. Your kidneys perceive this as a fluid overload and immediately start producing urine to reduce the perceived extra volume. Many people keep their bedrooms too cold or leave their feet exposed during the night. If your feet get cold, your body immediately starts shifting fluid toward your center, and within an hour, your bladder is full. This is why one of the simplest yet most effective tips for stopping midnight bathroom trips is to wear socks to bed or use a heating pad at the foot of the bed. By keeping your extremities warm, you keep your blood vessels dilated, preventing that sudden fluid shunting that wakes up your kidneys. This simple change in bedroom temperature can be the difference between waking up 3 times and sleeping through the entire night. Now let's talk about a secret that almost no one discusses. Mouth breathing versus nose breathing. This is perhaps the most profound discovery in modern sleep science. When you breathe through your mouth while sleeping, you trigger a physiological stress response. Mouth breathing is inefficient. It dries out your throat and causes your body to lose moisture at a rapid rate. But more importantly, mouth breathing is often linked to sleep apnea and loud snoring. When you snore or have mini interruptions in your breathing, your chest creates a huge amount of negative pressure. This pressure puts physical stress on your heart. When the heart feels this pressure from mouth breathing or snoring, it releases a hormone called atrial natriuretic peptide, ANP. This hormone is essentially a pee signal. It tells the kidneys, "We are under stress, dump the water." This is why people with sleep apnea or those who breathe through their mouths wake up multiple times a night with a full bladder. They think they have a bladder problem, but in reality they have a breathing problem. By practicing nose breathing or using a simple piece of sleep tape to keep the mouth closed, you can lower the stress on your heart, stop the production of the ANP hormone, and keep your bladder quiet until morning. Furthermore, we must address the blue light and melatonin connection. Melatonin is known as the sleep hormone, but it also has a secondary job. It helps regulate the kidney's filtration rate. When your room is filled with blue light from a phone or television late at night, your melatonin production is suppressed. Without adequate melatonin, your body doesn't enter the deep stages of sleep where the antidiuretic hormone, ADH, is most active. If you are in a light sleep state because of screen time, your kidneys stay in daytime mode. Creating a completely dark environment, using blackout curtains and removing all electronic devices is not just for your brain, it is for your bladder. Total darkness signals the body to enter a conservation state, and where urine production is naturally minimized. We also need to consider the position of sleep. For many individuals, especially those with mild heart issues or circulation problems, sleeping flat on their back can be a trigger. When you are flat, the fluid from your entire body moves toward your heart more aggressively. Some urologists recommend a slight incline, propping the head of the bed up by just 3 to 5 inches. This subtle change in gravity helps slow down the rate at which fluid returns to the heart, giving the kidneys a slower stream to process, which can prevent the bladder from filling up too quickly in the early hours of the morning. Finally, let's discuss what you do when you actually wake up. Most people, when they wake up at 2 a.m., immediately turn on a bright bathroom light. This is a massive mistake. That burst of bright light instantly stops melatonin production and tells your brain that the day has started. This makes it much harder to fall back into a deep sleep, and often leads to a second wake-up 2 hours later. If you must go, keep the lights as dim as possible. Use a small red-tone nightlight, which doesn't disrupt your sleep hormones. In conclusion, managing your nighttime urination is a holistic journey. It starts at 2 p.m. by moving your legs. It continues at 6 p.m. by balancing your chemistry with the right drink and salt-free meal. And it ends in your bedroom by controlling the temperature, your breath and the light. Your body is a finely tuned machine, and when you give it the right signals, it will give you the rest you deserve. You don't have to live with broken sleep. You don't have to feel exhausted every morning. By following this complete protocol, you are taking back control of your health, your energy, and your life. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the science of sleep. Sleep well and stay healthy.